Turkey has a message for India. Don't judge us through Pakistan. That is what Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan is now saying. That their friendship with Pakistan should not be seen as hostility towards India. His argument is really simple. There are many people who have good relations with both India and Pakistan. So, why should India and Indians view Turkey with suspicion? Just listen to what he said, and then we will come to the problem in what he is saying.
Turkey is not the only country who actually have good relations and brotherly relations with Pakistan. There are other countries. If India is going to take actions or be resentful about any countries who is having good relations and enjoying giving support to Pakistan, so I don't know. But as I said, we have no problem on bilateral level with India, and we urge India not to read the issue from a different perspective.
Hakan Fidan sounds reasonable, except there is one problem. India is not upset because Turkey has relations with Pakistan. India is upset because Turkey has spent years using those relations to openly challenge India. From repeatedly raising Kashmir at the United Nations to backing Pakistan at the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, which is the OIC, to supplying weapons to Islamabad, and even supporting Pakistan during Operation Sindoor. So Turkey did not just maintain ties with Pakistan, it actively inserted itself into India's core security concerns, which is why many in Delhi are listening to Fidan's appeal with a degree of mistrust. Let's start with a basic question. Is Turkey really being treated unfairly? After all, many countries maintain good relations with both India and Pakistan. There's the United States, there's Saudi Arabia, the UAE does it, even Russia has engaged both sides at different points. Yet, India's relationship with those countries has survived. So why is Turkey different? Because the problem is not Pakistan. The problem is what Turkey has chosen to do in the name of supporting Pakistan. Erdogan has repeatedly raised Kashmir at the United Nations General Assembly. In fact, among major world leaders, he's virtually alone in doing so year after year. Turkey has actively pushed anti-India positions within the OIC. Erdogan has made remarks on Kashmir while standing on Pakistani soil. Turkish media platforms and think tanks have in fact become major amplifiers of Pakistani narratives against India. And increasingly, Turkey has moved beyond rhetoric. It has entered the military domain. That is why many Indian policymakers believe that Fidan's statements leave out an important part of the story. Turkey was never criticized for having ties with Pakistan. Turkey was criticized for repeatedly taking Pakistan's side against India. If there was one moment that pushed relations into deep freeze, it was Operation Sindoor. When India launched strikes against terror infrastructure in Pakistan, Ankara wasted little time in picking its side. Turkey condemned India's actions, it expressed solidarity with Islamabad, and Pakistan deployed large number of Turkish-origin drones during the confrontation. The optics were unmistakable. For years, India had tolerated Turkish criticism, but now Turkey appears to be helping arm Pakistan during a military crisis. That changed perceptions in New Delhi. The relationship moved from a diplomatic irritation to a strategic concern, and India began looking for a way to respond. And it has done so diplomatically and geopolitically by quietly slipping into Turkey's backyard. The first signal came from Cyprus. Prime Minister Modi's first overseas visit after Operation Sindoor was to Nicosia. That was not just symbolism, For Turkey, Cyprus is one of its most sensitive geopolitical disputes. The island has remained divided since 1974. And today, India and Cyprus are steadily expanding defense cooperation, joint training, maritime security, cyber cooperation, all of it. And potentially something even more consequential: Indian weapons. Reports that Cyprus is interested in acquiring BrahMos missiles and Indian loitering munitions has drawn immediate attention in Turkish strategic circles, because for the first time, Turkey could see Indian military technology entering a theater which it considers strategically important. If Cyprus got Turkey's attention, Armenia may have its full attention. Over the last few years, India has become one of Armenia's most important defense suppliers. Pinaka rocket systems, Akash air defense systems, artillery, ammunition, military contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Now look at this from Ankara's perspective. Armenia remains locked in a rivalry with Azerbaijan, and Azerbaijan is Turkey's closest regional ally. The slogan often used by Ankara and Baku is simple: one nation, two states. So every Indian defense system delivered to Armenia changes the military balance in a region that Turkey deeply cares about. For years, Turkey used Pakistan as leverage against India. Today, India has discovered leverage of its own. There is another reason that Turkey's tone may be changing. Unlike its relationships with America, Europe, and Russia, Turkey does not have overwhelming strategic reasons to antagonize India. Think about Ankara's ties with the West. Turkey is a NATO member. It hosts critical military facilities. It has deep defense links with Washington. Millions of people of Turkish origin live across Europe. Its trade with the European Union runs into hundreds of billions of dollars. Then there is Russia. There is energy, trade, regional security coordination that they have with Russia despite disagreements. In all these relationships, differences are balanced by enormous mutual interests. With Pakistan, Turkey gains political goodwill and ideological alignment, but the economic and strategic returns are limited. India, meanwhile, is the world's fastest growing major economy, a massive market, an emerging defense exporter, an increasingly influential power stretching from the Mediterranean to the Indo-Pacific. The cost of alienating India are becoming harder to ignore. Which brings us back to Hakan Fidan's appeal. Turkey says India should not view bilateral ties through the Pakistani prism. But trust is built on actions, not statements. For years, India largely ignored Turkish provocations in the hope that relations will eventually somewhere recover. Instead, Ankara has doubled down on Kashmir and on anti-India narratives. Now, India is responding, not with outrage, but with strategic positioning. Cyprus, Armenia, the Eastern Mediterranean, the Caucasus, and perhaps that is what Turkey is finally reacting to. Because the message from New Delhi is becoming increasingly clear. India has no objection to Turkey having relations with Pakistan. But if Ankara chooses to challenge India on its core national interests, India now has options of its own. And for the first time in years, Turkey may be discovering that anti-India activism comes with consequences. And that is why Fidan's remarks matter. They may not represent a visible Turkish policy change yet, but they do suggest something very, very important. Ankara has begun noticing that the balance of leverage is no longer entirely one-sided. This is Times Axis, where global stories meet India's perspective. Click on the bell icon to subscribe, because the next big global shift will have India at its center.